Hi, my name is Kimberly from Zeman Development. Today I'm going to show you how to import your DonorDrive data into Razor's Edge using Importacular. So the first thing you'll need to do is open up Importacular in the plugins area of Razor's Edge. Click on DonorDrive and click Start. And then you choose the date you want to import your entries from. If you've used it before, it will show you the date you last ran the import, but you can always change it if you want to work with historic data. And you can include your one-time donations, your recurring gifts, or both. I'm just going to bring in my one-time donations for now. Once the data is downloaded, you can see I've got 10 records for review. You'll need to create a mapping template. I've got one already set up, so let's take a look at what I've created. When you open up the Build Mappings area, you can see all of the different areas of Razor's Edge along the top. As part of the free version, you have access to the constituent, the addresses, and the gifts areas. All the others are available at a low monthly subscription rate, and we do a 2-week trial so you can test them all out for yourselves as well. When you're using DonorDrive, you might also be interested in the participant area, so we do have a separate video for that if you're interested in seeing how that works. Take a look on our YouTube playlist. So the first thing you'll need to do is create constituent mapping. It's the one at the very top. Let's take a look at how I've set that up. When you open the data mapping screen, you've got your Razor's Edge fields on the left, your source field down the centre, and if you click on the arrow next to any Razor's Edge field, you'll see all the different fields available from DonorDrive for you to bring into Razor's Edge. And you can put that data anywhere you want within your Razor's Edge database, so you can select whichever field to go wherever you like. You've also got the option of a default value, so you can type something into a text field, check a checkbox, or choose from a drop-down if it's a code table. So if we look down here, we've got our first name field in Razor's Edge, and I've mapped that to our donor first name field in DonorDrive. You can see also that this has a little green tick, and that means that that's a required field in Razor's Edge. So I have to put some data in either the source field or the default value in order for this mapping to work correctly. I've also set up my donor last name and my addressee and salutation as well. And for the addressee and salutation, I've selected a default value and it shows me all my addressee and salutation options in Razor's Edge, and I just choose the appropriate one. I've also got some settings that you can see on the far right hand side here, and on every field you've got different settings to allow you to make sure that data is coming into Razor's Edge in a clean way that matches with all your existing Razor's Edge data. So for example, with the last name, you can see at the top I've got the box tick to say only update these values for new constituent records. So I don't want to mess with the first name or the surname of any existing constituents because I'm happy that in Razor's Edge those are the way I want them. I can also change the text casing to proper case. So if people are entering their own data and they're perhaps not filling it out as exactly as we would like, we can make sure that all of our name data has got capital first letters. So that's pretty straightforward in terms of what I've set up there. Obviously, you can fill in as many fields as you want on the constituent record. You could add a birthday, you could add a marital status, you could add a title or a suffix, whatever you're collecting in DonorDrive you can add here. So let's save that. I've also got a requirement on my Razor's Edge database to add a constituent code when I'm creating a new record. So I've set up a constituent code mapping. This one's much more simple. I've simply selected the default value from my constituent codes. I could also choose a date from if I wanted. You can see that I've given the mapping a name and it's linked with the constituent record now, so I know who this constituent code is for. In addition to the field settings we saw, we've got settings for the entire area of mapping, and that just allows us for some additional configuration. So for example here, I'm saying we're only going to add a new code when no existing match is found, otherwise we're going to update the existing one. I can choose to match on the code value as well as the date if I want. And then at the bottom, I've chosen to only add this constituent code for new constituents. So existing constituents won't get it, but we've got some other options here as well, so you can make sure it's added in the way you want. Now, I could go on and add as many different mapping areas as I wanted. I've got attributes, appeals, solicit codes, notepads, aliases. All of these are available as part of the free version. Let's take a look at the addresses. I've set up a postal address, an email address, and a phone number, and I've also got address attributes here as well. So let's take a look at how I've set up the address. Again, I've mapped the appropriate fields to my Razor's Edge fields. So I've got donor street, city and date. I've got my settings set up so I'm not overwriting existing address data. I've checked the checkboxes for preferred and send mail to for these new addresses. And I've got my state and zip. I've also got a default type of home address as well. And then I've got my email address and my phone number. And there's some settings on the address that allow me to make sure that I'm backing up any existing addresses and not overwriting and losing my address history. My email and phone number are much more straightforward. I can see that I've got the phone number itself, or the email address itself in this instance, and the type. I've chosen that this email address will be primary for new constituents, and everything else I've left blank. And if you have more than one email address or more than one phone number, you can just keep adding these until you've created as many as you need. And then finally, I've set up the gift. So you can see instantly with the gift, there are far more required fields. And some of these I filled with default values, and some of them I filled with fields from my DonorDrive data. So I've got my appeal set up as a default value, but with my event name, I've got it matched to campaign. But the event names I'm using in DonorDrive are not exactly the same as my campaign names in Razor's Edge. So I'm going to need to tell it how to find the appropriate campaign. So that's what we use our data transformations for in our settings. So if I click on my settings, we can see in the data transformations here that I've got the source data. So that's what's the event name in DonorDrive. Change to target. So that shows me which campaign I want to use on Razor's Edge. So I'm telling it which one to match to, and I'm going to match it exactly, and I'm going to completely replace it. So if I wanted to add a new one, I simply click on the plus. I could add the name of another event, and then I click to select, and I can now see all of my existing campaigns that I've got running. So I'm going to choose this one, and it will match that. You can also see that I've got this one, which has got a grayed out source field, and that's because this is a catch-all. So anything that isn't DonorDrive integrations or Gala will be given the campaign name of annual campaign, just so I'm not missing any data and everything else is getting caught up in the right place. Okay, let's save that. This is also really useful if you've got things like states that are coming in a different way to how you've got them set up in Razor's Edge, or anywhere where the data doesn't match exactly and you need to tell Razor's Edge, you need to tell Importacular how to find it in Razor's Edge. So that gift is all set up here. We can save it. And again, we've got some additional gift mapping options here, which I haven't taken advantage of, but you absolutely have access to all of those in the free version. Now, once you're happy with your template, we can save and close this. And now we're going to run the import. So the first thing we do is create a control report, and this just shows us any errors there might be during the processing. And when you're doing a test, there might be a little bit of going backwards and forwards whilst you check the data against your template setup and make some changes to make sure it works as you want. So you might want to only process a smaller number of records initially. So I'm going to process my first 5 records, and that will very easily allow me to test my template. I'm also going to create a Razor's Edge query of new and updated constituents so I can find them easily when I've completed my import. So when I press continue, this will take me to my data review screen where I can check all of my data before I run the import. The first screen we see here shows us any matches that there might be in Razor's Edge and what those are, so we can check if we want to update that record. You can see the action to take on the left. So the first record's a brand new record, so we're going to create that. The second record is an update. So we can see at the bottom the matched record. We can see some basic information, but if we're not 100% sure if it's the same person, then we can click on the Razor's Edge symbol here, and it will open up the record for us to do a quick speed check as well. We've then got another new record, and then the record below it looks exactly the same, but you can see that it says update and you've got the little grid match symbol. And that means that it's found a match from within this grid. So rather than creating 3 Ben Claytons, it's going to create 1 and then update him twice. So this might happen if you've got somebody who, say, makes 1 gift, but then makes subsequent gifts at the same event. So he's got 3 records in here. We're going to create the first one and then add his additional gifts to the first record. once you're happy with those, we can check every single data point that's going into Razor's Edge here. So we can see our mapping template, every field we mapped and what that's going to be filled with. So here's our basic constituent record. We've also got our constituent code. In the addresses, we've got an address here. We've got an email address and a phone number. And anything that you see in black, we can edit. So if you spot a typo or something that just isn't quite within your Razor's Edge guidelines, you can make a quick spot check without having to go back to the original data and make changes there. So I'm just going to get rid of that plus in that email address because I know that's erroneous. I can check my phone number and I can check through all my gift data as well. This is all grayed out because this is going to go into the batch and I can check it there before I commit it. So once you're happy with all of those data points, then we can import the data. But before we do that, we've got the option to run a validation, and that will just check everything against our Razor's Edge rules and configuration to make sure it's going to go in as we would want. So we run the validation. There are no errors. We can see green ticks for created records and little pencils for any updated ones. We can see a summary here. And so given that that's going to go in okay, I'm going to untick the validate box and import it. So that's my query of my new and updated records. I can now go back into Razor's Edge and take a look. So the first thing I want to do is go and take a look at my batch. So we can find it here. And we can see all of my gifts with all of the information that I entered. I'm happy with that, so I'm going to commit it. And now let's go and find that query of my new and updated records. Here it is. Just going to put something in the output so we can see them. So here are my 3 records. So I've got 2 brand new records, which are Ben Clayton and Donna, and I've got my updated. Let's take a look at my updated record first. So Robert Hernandez will just have a gift added to his record. We can see that gift here. So we can see the campaign, the fund and the appeal. The campaign was the one that I added with the transformation, and all the other data that I added in my import, and the gift ID. Now if I take a look at one of my new records, we can see we've got Ben here, and so as discussed we had 3 records for him in the review screen, but he's only created 1. We've got his online donor constituent code, we've got his phone number, his email address. If we go to his gift tab, we can see his 3 gifts that have been added there as well. So that's how easy it is to import your DonorDrive data using Importacular. There are many other tutorial videos available on our website and our YouTube channel. If you've got any questions, please do get in touch. Thanks for listening.